Okay, chaps, fantastic to talk to you for Bridge of Spies. Tom, this is your fourth time that you've worked with this guy.
Indeed, this guy.
What does Mr. Spielberg do that other directors don't?
He
quit at 6.
Well, not always. I can tell you right now, you don't always quit at 6. We wish you would sometimes. This is what he does. He demands that whoever is cast come in with rock'em sock'em ideas. No one gets to walk onto a Steven Spielberg set and just say the word then walk off. No one is just given this job where they deliver the goods and then that. When we were working with Scott in the bar scene where I'm going at it with Scott Shepard. At one point, Steven even said, "Scott, you're doing it the same way every time. You need to do something different for him. I need something different from you." It was like Scott's eyes went buggy for a second because I thought our job was just to do it the same. So that if you'll notice in the movie, every actor has a moment unto themselves that they get to create all unto themselves, and he expects that, and he demands it. Not every director will come and will appreciate the ideas that you have when you come in at the top of the day.
When I cast an actor to be in one of my movies, I also cast a collaborator. Somebody's going to come really prepared to enrich the experience, not just for themselves, but for the film as a whole. So I do expect actors to come in with ideas.
What were the difficulties turning these events into a movie with a beginning, a middle, and an end?
I guess the biggest thing is the collapsing of time. Although we don't say it. I mean, it was about 5 years between the trial of Rudolph Abel and the events that happened, but right. we don't say it didn't happen. We don't say that it did happen.
The biggest license that I took was to crunch 4 years into what looks like it's happening all in real time, and otherwise we wouldn't have been able to carry the suspense as far as we tried to. But there were just little things, like for instance, when Donovan's house got shut up, one bullet came through the window, not 7. I added six more bullets, and also in those days, Donovan was actually, when his house was shut up, living in an apartment, not in a house. So those are the kind of changes. Rudolph, for instance, when they arrested the young economics student, Frederick Pryor, he was taken into custody, but his thesis that they busted him on was in his car 3 blocks from where they arrested him. And they had to put that together, and then they had to certify the arrest. So that was a little license taken there. But all the events in the movie happen as we show them. The events, meaning the principal superstructure of the story, is all true. You can just Google it and find out for yourself.
The Donovan character, he's a fascinating character, especially if you watch through the movie and you see what happens to him afterwards as well. Did he die in 1970?
No, he died very early, in the mid to late 60s. He had a heart attack. He actually wrote prolifically about what he went through. There's a very long book about his defense of Rudolph Abel. And there's a very fantastic book about his 6 days in Berlin, the actual SWAT. One of the first things I did was, upon reading the script, was, you Google him, you go on YouTube and whatnot, and there he was being interviewed, and he vocalized the exact rap that he gave about Rudolph Abel, and that ended up, that he
not a treason.
And he used it as it was the reasoning that he took to the Supreme Court. In fact, he was very self-assured in what he believed, and it's actually quite common sense. I mean, I don't look anything like him. He was a big, beefy Irishman, but he was he had this kind of like hot diggity kind of sensibility of a negotiation, because he was very, very sure of his negotiating skills. Yeah. Because he viewed a successful negotiation as when both sides think they've won.
Bridge of Spies is a celebration of American values. Is that a loaded term now in the way that it wasn't in the 1960s?
Well, I think, American values are one that periodically has to rip apart the status quo. And in fact, I think if Donovan had been adhering strictly to that, he would have wanted to execute Rudolph Abel as well. The Red Scare that was going on and the fear of communism that brought on, the status quo was all about, they're going to get us, we got to root out every one of these sons of bitches. And it was like a version of the House on American Activity. Activities Committee, and he was a guy just saying, whoa, 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 wait, you can't call this man a traitor because you have to be an American to be a traitor, and he's not American, so therefore he's not a traitor. That's almost like taking a position of an outlier there, and I think the American values always are. It's like, well, wait a minute, rather than just have the knee-jerk reaction to the way things are, let's ponder for a moment the way things might be able to be, because we find ourselves, I think, to be a constantly self-correcting nation that periodically has to weigh the big issues and say, well, what is it meant to be an American? What does this concept of the pursuit of happiness actually means? Well, it sort of means that I can't force you to be made happy only by the things that I am made happy by. And that's, you know, that's the way that our nation has steadily progressed, and by and large, all of the West has.
Today, you know, you don't find as many people that are willing to stand up on principle, ethically and morally, the way Donovan did all those years ago. I mean, there are people that want to stand up, but social media sometimes knocks you back.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you haven't done a film that isn't a historical kind of piece since 2005, since War of the Worlds. Am I right on that?
Well, War of the Worlds was a historical drama. You missed that this story has actually happened, but we were all completely tranquilized by the aliens.
Based on events.
We don't remember. Based on true events, right?
Based on actual events.
Gee, that wasn't historical, my goodness. The only reason I made War of the Worlds was because I thought War of the Worlds was a very, appropriate response to 9/11. And so I had a chance to do what 9/11 made me feel like, and I think made a lot of the world feel like. A lot of those images and a lot of those ideas got into War of the Worlds. War of the Worlds had that feeling about it, you know. Certainly, I've always been a history buff. Tom and I, in our personal friendship, we're complete buffs of history. We're always sending each other things. We geek out over history. We make mini-series about historical events. And it's something that I like to do more than anything else.
Is it nice to make a film that isn't part of an expanded universe or a sequel?
Bridge 2? I don't know. No.
You heard it here first.
I don't think about movies that way. I think every movie has its time and has its function. And some movies do have a function to inspire other stories if it's a natural, handoff, from one to the next. The films that I don't love are the films where the handoff is forced because the film did so well in theaters, and now they're forcing a handoff. They're forcing a story that never had its place in the natural world of cinema, but nevertheless, for business reasons, they're going to shove it down our throats. Those are the films that I don't really, subscribe to and think are good ideas. So Bridge of Spies, there's no possibility for a sequel unless we do the Bay of Pigs story, the Donovan story of the Bay of Pigs.
Be warmer.
Be a lot warmer. Be a lot warmer.
Too bad.
I think there's a lot of audiences really do appreciate new, contestants, to the game. They love something that has no precedent. They love something they've never heard of before. They love to be the discoverers of a new country, of a whole new world. So Avatar had nothing, that was precedent-setting about it. It was a completely original story out of left field, and people just discovered it and kept wanting to experience it again and again and again. So everything, it can be a sequel that's really extravagantly successful, or it can be a one-off that takes the prize. We just don't know. In a way, we don't know anything. We just have to do what we need to do to satisfy ourselves as filmmakers, and that's all we have to worry about, really.
What do you both like and dislike most about our fair country?
I don't like how every time it rains, we're on location. Somebody on the crew says, "It hasn't rained like this in 600 years." And I've heard that on 7 movies.
I like the pace here. I like the way the day fills itself up. I'm glad I don't have to drive in. What do they call that? Well, I just drive. Period.
But the crews are extraordinary here. You must know the crafts in this country, what they do for television, what they do for movies. The people are skilled in every single department here. It's one of the most filmic and film conscious and craft conscious nations in the world. And we come here not just because of the fabulous tax rebate. that is provided by your government.
Famously, you asked to direct a Bond film. Would you still like to direct one, or has that ship sailed?
Probably Broccoli. He turned me down 2 or 3 times, and I'm not. If Cubby calls me now from the beyond and asks me to do the next Bond film, I'm going to have to apologize and say no. He had a shot with me in the 70s. After Jaws, he said no.
Yeah.
I really wanted to do a Bond film, but once I saw what Sam Mendes was doing with it, I so respect and admire Sam. And Sam and Daniel together as a team, I mean, man, they should just keep making these things. I know they won't, but it would be great to have one Bond after the other a couple of years by that team.
Stephen, you once said that I look at 4 films. They tend to be Seven Samurai, Lawrence of Arabia, It's a Wonderful Life, and The Searchers. Are they still the 4 films that you go to? And Tom, what would be the 4 films that you would go to?
No, those aren't the same 4 films anymore because I think it changes as I get older, as I start seeing more old movies, and now I'm basically in a complete William Wyler frame of mind. I've been watching all of Wyler's old films. And I do a lot of, I like the old black and white films from the 1930s and 40s. I just saw Mrs. Miniver for like the 8th time.
That's a great movie. 2001: A Space Odyssey is still my major go-to. The Best Years of Our Lives. That's still a
William Wyler.
Huge, massive go-to. Sherlock Jr., Buster Keaton, which is it, and not just because he's in the room, but Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Can't go wrong with that. And that's get the flu. Watch those 4 movies over the course of the day. That's a good time.
Appropriate response to 9/11, and so I had a chance to do what my 9/11 made me feel like, and I think appropriate response to 9/11, and so I had a chance to do what my 9/11 made me feel like, and I think appropriate response to 9/11, and so I had a chance